896, Protecting Tenants at Foreclosure Act. Have you heard about this? Anybody? Nobody. Okay, good. Well, that's one of the reasons I'm here, because not many people know about this, but most of us know someone who is either facing foreclosure now or might be soon. Okay, and so if that's the case, then listen up, because what I'm going to be sharing with you is a very practical solution that might apply to those individuals. Or if you meet somebody in the future, which you will, that is going to be facing foreclosure or having a hard time, has lost their job, might be losing their house or whatever. So this is a very practical thing. This is the law here. This was something that was that's the actual text of the law. This was passed in 2009. It's only good until 2012. It was signed by President Obama a little while ago. Not many people know about it, but it was intended to help the innocent victims of foreclosure, and that is the tenant. So if someone is leasing your house or leasing a room in your house, this law applies to them. The problem that Congress was trying to solve was that homes were being foreclosed upon by lenders, by banks, and notices are being posted on the doors giving not only the homeowner who knew this day was coming, but the lessee or the renter who did not know the day was coming, and the renter being given 3 days to get out. And so this law was put into effect to supersede all the state laws and local laws that did not protect that tenant yet.
Would that also be an advantage for the investor that owns the rental property, because now they can continue renting for a few more months, collecting rent, even though they know the place is going into foreclosure?
Let me go on, okay, and then that answer might become apparent. Okay, because I am going to talk about the application of this thing a little bit here. So, protections. The tenants must be given the protections according to the law, that they must be given a minimum 90-day pre-eviction notice by the successor of interest. That would be the lender, or the bank. I'll call them the bank. Okay, or whoever holds clear title after the foreclosure. Okay. Now, it covers renters with leases that are terminable at will, and renters without formal leases, but where someone has been making payments, renting a room or whatever. All right. Now, here's the thing: if the tenant has more than 90 days left on the lease, the tenant must be allowed to stay until the lease ends. Most people don't know that. This is a federal law. The tenant must be allowed to stay until the lease ends. What if it's a 2-year lease? The tenant must be able to stay for 2 years until the lease ends. That's a good thing. The reason that's a good thing is because the homeowner gets to stay too. After foreclosure, they don't own the house anymore. The bank owns the house, but the tenant isn't going anywhere, or doesn't have to, because they're protected by federal law. Okay, yeah, I can see hands going up. Let me go on a little bit, and I'm going to try to answer some of your questions first, and then we'll go around and I'll get this. And I'm actually involved in this. I'm helping a friend do this. It actually works. Okay, so let me go on. These are leases enacted prior to foreclosure. All right, they are limited to bona fide leases, meaning the tenant is not the mortgagor, the child, the spouse, the parent. Notice that the law does not say brother, sister, aunt, uncle, neighbor, friend, and none of that. Cousin, none of those are identified. Mortgagor, child, spouse, parent. Lease is the result of an arm's length transaction. That means that basically the person renting the room really has a valid reason for renting the room. You're giving them a good deal, or it's a fair market value kind of a thing. It can't be just you rent for $1. Rent to under lease is fair market value. That's the other thing. It does have to be a fair market value rent. Okay. Now, if you're facing foreclosure, then here's the practical side of things. Or if you know someone facing foreclosure. And before I get too far, I did create and I am going to be handing out a piece of paper that has some of the information, a single sheet to anybody that wants it, that has some of the information that I'm talking about, some references, phone numbers, whatever. So if you want more information about this, this will give it to you, okay? I'm not selling anything here, but you need to know this because, well, we all need to know this. You're in this industry. Consider leasing your home or a room in your home for 2 years. Okay? Give the renter full access to the home. That means pay all the utilities and the extras, the cable TV, the internet, let them have that. Okay? There's a good reason for that. Because, well, let me go on. The renter must be prepared to claim the right to possession, which means they're going to say, oh, you can't kick me out. I've got this federal law protecting me. Okay, so they have to be prepared to say, no, I'm not going anywhere. This is my room, and I have full access to the cable TV, and somebody's got to pay for that cable TV, but it's not going to be me. Okay, so they occupy the premise prior to the date of foreclosure. They are at least 18, and they must be willing to appear in court just to say, yes, in fact, I live there. Okay, now this part. Hire an attorney to enforce the claim by filing an affidavit with the court in advance of the foreclosure. If you wanted to use this, or a relative or friend of yours wanted to do this, you don't do this yourself. Yeah, it's a federal law, but you know what? The banks don't care, and they don't even know. They're just going to post a sign at the door that said, everybody out. We own this property, everybody out. And that's exactly what happened to a friend of mine, but fortunately they were protected by this. Okay, they already had the attorney. They already have a lease agreement in place. It's not an ordinary lease agreement. It's an 11-page lease agreement drafted by the very attorneys that are going to defend you. They specifically drafted it with this in mind so that when they walk into the courtroom with a copy of the lease that they drafted, they know that there are no holes in that lease. There are no loopholes. There are no issues with it. They can stand there and say, sorry, Judge, and the judge is going to look through it and go, yep, you got 2 years, okay, see you, bank, you're out of here, and that's the end of it. So, but it does have to be done in advance of the foreclosure. It doesn't stop the foreclosure. It just stops the eviction, okay? For most of the people who are going to be losing their house, the reason that losing their house is such a trauma is, one, they have to get out, and two, they don't have any money. They can't afford to go to the next place. The people I'm helping do this, and I told about them and sort of coached them and stuff like that, they don't have anything. So they don't know where to go. And they're like, well, I guess we just have to get an apartment for $800 somewhere and, you know, try to squeeze everything in. They got a house on the top of the hill in Camarillo, and it's got a 360-degree view and a swimming pool, and now they're like, what are we going to do? So, you know, this is for them or for anybody else that might be facing this kind of a situation. Now, here's the thing. If the foreclosure takes place, the lender does not intend, the lender, in this case, the bank, in this case, does not intend to occupy the premises after foreclosure. Because there was a thing down here that do I have it? Yeah, it says, unless the new owner will occupy the property as the primary residence. Okay? In the rare case that your property went to the courthouse steps and someone there decided to buy the property so that they could live in it, well, then this wouldn't work. But how often does that happen? Not too. Maybe once in a while, but not too often. So, most of the time the people on the courthouse steps are investors. They have no intention of living there. Or it's the lender themselves, the bank it goes back to the bank, it's an REO, and they don't have any intention of living there. So, as long as the lender doesn't intend to occupy the premises, then the active lease prevents the lender from evicting the tenant for the duration of the 2-year lease. Now, the lease clause that gives the tenant access to the property, the gas and the electric and the TV and the cable and the internet and all that stuff, somebody has to keep those bills paid, has to continue to keep the house open, keep the lawn mowed and the pool filled and all that stuff. Well, it isn't going to be the bank. So, in fact, the owner stays as well, protected by the same law that protected the tenant. So now you've got a 2-year opportunity. From the time that you know, it's a 2-year lease that they crafted, okay? And of course, during that period, after foreclosure, but before your tenant actually has to move out, 2 years, you know, when the lease expires, the homeowner doesn't own the house anymore. So the homeowners that I'm working with, the bank owns the house. Are they still there? Yeah, they're still there. Is there a tenant? Yeah, there's a tenant. They haven't moved out. The bank can't make them move out. The bank can't make the tenant move out. The bank has no leverage. Okay? The attorneys that they hired that crafted the lease are on the phone with the bank saying, no, 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 no. And they're sending affidavits back and forth and all that stuff, They're doing all their lawyer stuff. But the homeowners just living their life, waiting for the 2 years to expire. So they've got until March 5th of 2013, okay? According to the 2-year lease, okay? So I'm going to say, don't try to do this yourself. Contact me. If this is interesting to you, let me know. And the reason I say that is because it's not an ordinary lease, and they're not ordinary attorneys, okay? I don't know what other attorneys might be doing this. I know that the people that I'm working with are specialists. They drafted that lease agreement for this very purpose. I'm tied in with a network of attorneys that are nationwide, and they do this kind of stuff. And I found out about it from one of their guys. We have a sort of a point of contact, and he told us all about it. And we just went, wow, that's cool, But I think it's cool enough to share with everybody that it's certainly something you need to have in your hip pocket. And if the day comes, and if you want more information, and if you need this thing, let me know, and I'll put you in contact with the right people. It's not that big. Yeah.
Quick question: is the rental income you're receiving from your tenant dependent upon whether you report that to the IRS for this to be effective or not?
No.
Just the lease, not reporting.
It has nothing to do.
Okay.
The law doesn't say anything about that. It just says the lender, you cannot kick out a tenant after foreclosure if there's an active lease in place. If there's over 90 days, you have to let the lease expire. And so the bank is like stuck. They cannot do anything. As long as there's an attorney in place to tell them that they're stuck. Because if you don't have an attorney, the right attorney to tell them that they're stuck, then they aren't. And the bank is just going to roll over you. And that's the thing. So it's a nice thing to know, yeah.
And who's paying the attorney, the seller?
Yes, and that, I don't know if I had that in there. I did at one point. I don't know if I took it out or not. But it is $4,000 for the attorney. So it's not cheap. It's not entirely cheap. Now understand that $4,000 is relatively inexpensive given that you're not going to pay any mortgage for 2 years. Okay? That's nice. Okay? But it is $4,000. Okay? And that's really, and I don't think I would, for me, I would not go with anybody but the attorneys that I know, unless you find somebody that really knows this and really has done this. Okay? I could give you the actual lease agreement because I have a copy of the blank lease agreement, but it's not about that. It's about the attorneys, and then they have this certificate of they send you the documents to sign that you are in fact the renter, and they have all that legal stuff. You send it all back to them. And then they're in contact with the bank, sending them all that junk. So they just send you, here's what we need from you, sign this, send it to me. They just walk you through it. It's so easy. But that's why it's $4 grand. You pay the attorneys.
So who gets the money?
The attorneys.
Now, who gets the 2 years rent?
Yeah.
The homeowner. It's a lease agreement. If they're renting a room for $700 a month, the homeowner gets it. If they're renting a room.
So the homeowner gets the money.
Or if they get out of the house and they rent it to their sister for 2 years, then their sister pays them rent, $2,000 a month. And maybe they move into the sister's house.
So
whatever.
If the homeowner stay there, he collects the rent from the renter and he pays nothing, it is for free?
No, the renter pays the $700 a month.
To the homeowner.
To the
What
homeowner.
about the homeowner?
Homeowner doesn't pay a thing. He doesn't own the house.
So he lives for free?
Yeah.
And he collects $700 rent?
Yeah.
And moves out of the house and rents it to his sister so he can get $3,000 a month.
Good.
Oh, really?
Clean up the house, rent it to a family. I mean, this is a big house. I mean, they could rent it to a family of 5, and 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, whatever it is, with a pool. They could rent it out, make $3,000 a month easy, and then just be banking it. Why not?
But that all has to happen prior to the foreclosure notice.
Prior to foreclosure, not prior to notice of default, though.
Really?
So you can get hit with notice of default and go,